Hey guys, my name is Garrett Hilger, and I chose the third exercise called impact cratering on a rainy day. Um, it's a very easy lab to do by yourself. It would be a lot easier if I had people with me, but you got to do what you got to do. The materials you need for this lab, it says in the lab obviously, but I got sand, which I poured in this cup, sand, and then you need 4 petri dishes. I use paper plates just because that's what I have on hand. What else do I need? You need a water source. You need a water pail, and this is my water pail that I got from I think Dollar Tree or Dollar General. And I use some duct tape to cover the nozzle, and then I use a fishing hook instead of a pin to poke my hole so I can get some very consistent drips out of it when I'm doing the lap. And how do you set it up? This is how I set it up since I'm by myself. As you see, my mesh is on the ground. You actually need the mesh also, actually, for the material. I got the mesh from Lowe's because I couldn't find any here at my house. Cost $6, I think. But I just laid the mesh on the ground, and then I put my plate under the mesh. So you can kind of distort the water that you're dripping, and it's a little more consistent that way. I did it without the mesh just to see what it would look like, and it just ended up being a watery mess, honestly. But then, other than that, the things that you need to know for this lab are your angles, really, geometry, really simple. 90, 45, and whatever else it said. 90, 45, 20, and 10. Obviously, you don't have anything to actually tell the angles. You just gotta have a very educated guess on where those angles are. And for this lab, what I learned was just how craters look when they're hitting. I would like to get a better size comparison, but of craters, obviously, but we're limited here, obviously. There's no safety concerns. The only thing I would say is when you're cutting your mesh to spec, don't cut yourself with scissors. It's kind of common sense, but overall it's really fun. So I had my little brother out here and he was making a watery mess out of it, but that's why my paper's wet and everything's wet. But I want to show you just real quick on how I dripped the water onto the mesh. You're supposed to do this for 30 seconds. I'll just show you for real quick. You need nice individual drips to ensure that the impact craters are, one single drip rather than a big blob of water falling onto the plate. Wasn't quite 30 seconds, obviously, but this will give you just an idea of what's going on here. I don't know if you can see this on camera, but there's, oops, don't mess with the sand, obviously. There's a few of these craters that we created, with the water and the sand. Another thing is I realized I tried to get sand from Sonic in our local park here. The sand was a little too coarse. It didn't give me good craters, so I ended up buying a bag of sand for $4 at Lowe's also, because it's very fine and it gave me better results. So if you're going to duplicate this lab, I suggest you find a very fine grained sand, almost like sand you put in a fish tank. I would rather have that, but Petco was sold out. But this worked just as good. Overall, it's fun. It's when you're by yourself, you just got to figure out how you're going to do it and how to do it. I tried to prop it up, my mesh up on ice chest, and it gave me very bad results. So the closer your mesh is to the plate, the better results will be. But yeah, other than that, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I'm trying to think what else I could tell you. I mean, you answered the questions, and I don't have my answer sheet with me because it was wet and watery out here. But these are very simple questions. Are the craters clustered together and overlap? In some places they do. It depends on obviously where you're moving that water pail. If your craters will overlap, and when they overlap, do they create a bigger crater, or is it almost engulfing the other crater that you already hit? In a lot of cases, in my experiment, the crater that I already hit was kind of engulfed by mine. But there's a couple places on my original experiment that is inside, hopefully not being shaken up and distorted. But the crater showed almost kind of like a Venn diagram, almost, I'll say that. And it was very good. I liked it. But, you know, and then obviously the questions, I have another, you're supposed to use 4 petri dishes, but my other ones are inside. But you do them at different times. Like you do one at 30 seconds, you do one at 5 minutes, and you do one for even longer. And, you know, and honestly, I think you didn't see much difference in the craters the longer you went. Some craters started to disappear because they're reforming by new craters hitting. But, you know, overall, the data was a little more, but overall it's kind of the same. But yeah, overall, and then for your angles, you use a flashlight. I used a spotlight because I wanted a very bright light, but I had to go into a very dark room, or I would show you out here, but it just doesn't show up right out here in this light. But I went to almost like my room, turn off the lights, and I used this light to show the shadows of my craters. Some craters were bigger, some craters were smaller, some craters had little to no shadow. And it just depends on the size of water that hit, and also, you know, where the water hit on the sand. And another thing that I found was the sand you have, you need to make sure it is level and flat. I kind of just got my petri dish, my plate, and I kind of shook it so the sand on top was very flat. So my craters would end up, you know, almost perfect. You know, if you use sand, you just dump it on there and start, you get almost kind of like what a volcano would look like when it's inside and it's a dome of dots. It didn't end up very well. But overall, if you follow those just simple steps, anybody can do this. You know, like I said, my little brother was out here, and as long as you give him, you know, detailed instructions and say, hey, pour this on this water for me, and he could do it. You know, he didn't know the degrees of the angles of the light that we were doing, but, you know, it's not that difficult. Kind of just go from point A, B, C, and D, shine the light, get your pictures. I also took pictures, you know, just in case my sand got distorted, you know. So I always have proof and data that I did this lab, and my results are there, you know, even if it's, you know, not the same as having your actual live petri dish or plate. Taking pictures helps just in case something happens, so you don't have to redo the whole lab. But overall, it's a very successful lab, obviously, and very easy. Very, very easy to do. And I suggest that more people should do it just for fun. It gets you outside, even though it's kind of chilly outside. It's about 40 degrees out here. I'm freezing. But I tried to do it inside, but I made a watery mess. So I just came outside. But overall, it was fun, and I enjoyed it. And I hope you guys enjoyed my instructions on how to do the impact cratering on a rainy day lab. Thanks.